Doug.
Limu and I always tell you to customize your car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. But now, we want you to feel it. Cue the emu music, Limu.
Save yourself money today. Increase your wealth. Customize and save, we say.
That may have been too much feeling.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.
That's the sound of the fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron and the quiet confidence of ultra-smooth handling. The elevated interior reminds you this is more than an EV. This is electric performance redefined.
A quick heads up before we get started today. We are talking about the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Please take care while listening. In addition, this is a fast-moving news story, so it's possible that some things may have changed by the time you listen. Okay, here's the show. I'm really sorry to start out our interview this way, but I wonder if you could describe for me when and how you came across the video of Charlie Kirk being shot.
Yes. So I first learned of him being shot on X and had sort of been scrolling and looking and really didn't want to see the video.
That's Craig Silverman. He's a longtime internet reporter who now runs Indicator Media. I consider him one of the smartest people around when it comes to understanding our digital ecosystems.
And one of the people I follow is Britt Hume, who is a longtime, host and commentator with Fox News. And he had quote tweeted something, and that came to the top of my feed. I looked at what he wrote, and underneath it turned out to be the video. And I, unfortunately, it was just a few seconds into it when he gets shot, and just I can't get the image out of my head, frankly. It's less than 24 hours later, just like this gush of blood coming from his neck. And I was actively trying to avoid it, and yet I wasn't able to because I kept scrolling.
You've covered social media platforms for a long time. Even with that caveat, were you surprised by how omnipresent this video was?
It's obviously not the first time that a really violent video of someone's death or of a mass shooting has kind of spread, but I did find it more on my timeline than I would have wanted or hoped and maybe would have expected. I think the goriness of it and how much people seem to have no hesitation about either posting it themselves or, retweeting, resharing across different platforms. I think that is strange behavior on one level. Like why so many people feel the urge to kind of put this out there in other people's faces, given how gory and really violent it is.
I guess I wonder if you are a person who is on social media right now, and we will differentiate the strains of social media later, but if you are a person who is on social media, should you expect that violence is going to be a part of your feed, even if you don't want it to be?
I think the short answer is yes. And I think it's really important to kind of pause and take that in that if you think about it, there's probably never been a time in human history where you had so much extremely graphic, violent imagery that not only was available to you at the drop of a hat, but also that in some cases, whether you wanted it or not, might end up showing up in front of you. And I don't really know what the consequences of that will be for individuals and for society, but it's something that's really important, I think, to, again, just pause and think about that the average person, whether they like it or not, may end up seeing videos of someone, being attacked violently, being shot, being, dismembered. This stuff sort of seeps out into and onto these platforms. And it's not like it's some crazy niche thing where you have to go and, find a snuff film somewhere. It's actually on the biggest social media platforms in the world, which is kind of crazy.
Today on the show, a social media society where we cannot look away. even if we try. I'm Lizzie O'Leary, and you're listening to What Next TBD, a show about technology, power, and how the future will be determined. Stick around. Finding great candidates to hire can be incredibly time-consuming. Have you experienced finding the right candidates, but they're not actively looking for a job, or sorting through resumes and waiting for the right candidates to apply? Well, the future of hiring looks much brighter because ZipRecruiter's latest tools and features help speed up finding the right people for your roles, so you save valuable time. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/TBD. With ZipRecruiter's new advances, you can easily find and connect with qualified candidates in minutes. See a candidate you're really interested in? You can unlock their contact info instantly. Over 320,000 new resumes are added to ZipRecruiter monthly, which means you can reach more potential hires and fill roles sooner. No wonder ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site based on G2. Use ZipRecruiter and save time hiring. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And if you go to ziprecruiter.com/TBD right now, you can try it for free. Again, that's ziprecruiter.com/TBD. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
I think we should explain for our audience, because people who are tremendously online, and many others, were no doubt aware of Charlie Kirk, but who was he?
He's a very important figure in the MAGA movement. He has become a very big right-wing media figure. He started as kind of a right-wing student organizer, doing events, made a name for himself kind of, as a kind of debate me guy, and, would go to campuses and have students ask him questions and getting into that.
Do you feel proud of yourself for debating college kids who are unprepared to speak in front of an audience like yourself? Hold on. You're 30 years old. We can agree you're 30 years old, right? Do you think that's a little bit silly?
Are you a voter?
I am a voter. I'm a registered voter.
I vote and you vote. So I'm talking to voters of this country that will determine the future of Western civilization. That's what I'm doing here today.
And then, he became a pretty widely syndicated radio host. He became had his own show on a sort of MAGA-aligned online streaming network, was very close with the Trump family. So he was, an important figure in that universe, and was, shot on, I guess, the first stop on his new kind of debate me kind of MAGA tour across campuses, which was a regular thing that he did.
I think it's important to talk about how the right-wing media ecosystem and social media specifically, and I'm including the transformation of X since Elon Musk purchased it, contributed to Charlie Kirk's specific rise, because it was a big part of his exposure network.
Absolutely. One of the things that Trump and the MAGA movement have done really well is to kind of seize upon our new digital media and information ecosystem and bend it to their advantage. I think one of the things that he realized, and that I think Trump realized relatively early on, was that kind of, to a certain extent, extreme wins on social media. When you have just a massive amount of information and content out there sloshing around, people posting this and that, how do you actually stand out when the average person might have just a huge amount of content in their own feed? And you stand out by doing things that kind of shock people, that get them angry, that get them really happy. It's it's got to stand out from the other things. And when it does, people share it, they like it, they make comments that are angry or encouraging, and that helps you rise to the top of a system where, whether it's Facebook or something else, they're trying to figure out which content to show people to get them to engage and spend time. And the stuff that gets them to engage and spend time is the stuff that sticks out. It is extreme. And so Charlie Kirk being willing to say things that were more extreme, being willing to go out and generate content of him getting in an argument and, owning the libs, that worked really, really well. It generated attention because people who were aligned with him loved it and saw him fighting the good fight, and people who disagreed with him hated it and were outraged by it. And he won either way.
It's taking the thing that the Trump administration figured out on Facebook in the 2016 presidential campaign to some exponential power.
Absolutely, and building kind of a network around it. They had a presence on campus, and they had events and things like that. But the events, in a lot of ways, like one, they were organizing events, but also it was like content generation, because you could have an event of him, debating and owning a lib, and so then it just it fed the cycle of it. And so he was a content machine. I mean, this guy, he was on video, he was on radio, he was doing live tours, he was running events, and all of that meant he was kind of omnipresent to the point where, he was featured in a recent South Park episode. That's how, well-known he was.
And now the footage of his shooting is content. And I don't even know what to do with that, because it feels like law enforcement is in many ways using the same tools that regular person with a cell phone standing in the crowd, people are watching this online. What do you make of the situation when we're basically all, for good and ill, online investigators?
Yes. I mean, this is one of the things with this case that we're already seeing kind of play out, because, there's somebody who's brought into custody very quickly after Kirk is shot. And so there's footage of that, of people filming this older guy being sort of kind of dragged away. And immediately, it's like, okay, somebody's in custody and we have video of the guy. But it turns out, he gets released. And then they get another guy. And so then everyone's like, oh, who is that? And what's the custody? And we also see videos of, potentially the shooter on a roof. And then we also see videos of people saying, oh my gosh, Charlie Kirk, it looks like the ring he's wearing has switched fingers when he's shot. Isn't that really suspicious?
Oh,
and
God.
so this is kind of like the new normal of the cycle of this, is we have access to so much information and so much footage that people can sort of stack that to align with whatever they think, if they want to blame this or they want to blame that. And so people start going out and looking for connections and evidence, which on the face of it is not a bad thing. To be an evidence-oriented person, to try to figure things out and make sense, is very, normal and healthy. But there's so much content that you can basically, shape it and forge it to be whatever you want it to be, to the extent that there was a guy who looked enough like the older dude that they had initially taken into custody, who actually lives in Canada, and people did facial searches on the dude being taken in, and it sort of matched this random guy in Canada, and all of a sudden he's being called out as the person who maybe shot Charlie Kirk. And this is, again, this is really common. And one of the reasons is just, the access to all the footage and information. And the other part is human behavior, which is we are always trying to make sense of the world around us. And when we lack information, like someone being caught and, said, this is the guy, we're trying to fill in the blanks and trying to explain what is a shocking and crazy event, and looking for explanations and looking for connections. It's very human, but, the results can really go awry.
Before we talk deeply about content moderation, I actually want to talk about two historical examples that I think are kind of informative. One is the JFK assassination. If you go back to 1963, right, we have Abraham Zapruder taking this film. Not a lot of people had cameras. But one of the things that is so striking to me is Zapruder made 3 copies of his footage. He shared it with investigators. But most people, even after the Warren Commission, did not see the key frame 313, until Geraldo put it on TV in 1975. And we're all seeing this stuff in real time all the time. I don't know. Does it somehow feel more flimsy or more important or less important because, like, there are 30,000 versions of the event instead of one?
On one level, the positive, of course, is that, that film should have been shown to the public. Like, it should have been accessible. And the amount of gatekeeping that could happen at the time of the Kennedy assassination between the FBI, between major news media, between the government, they were able to have a very tightly controlled release of information. I mean, even the Warren Commission, like, you had the longtime former head of the CIA, Dulles, who's on that, and his agency, to a lot of people, had a lot of things to answer for, and so the positive is having all of this information and being able to defeat a gatekeeping tendency that might be there from government agencies, media, etc. The sort of other part of that, of course, is it is out there, it is swirling and swimming around. And the idea of being able to, like, logically assemble this stuff and verify it and do the work of journalism and analysis, that can't happen instantly. And so it is trailing behind just huge amounts of content and speculation and stuff that exists between true and false and that kind of thing. And, it's just progressively over the last 15 years just become increasingly that way. Like, I started kind of really focusing on and researching this kind of thing, spread of rumors in the social media environment, almost 15 years ago. And, we saw the early seeds of this. It would happen in, like, Arab Spring and other things like that. And today, it's just the acceleration of it is what stands out to me. There is so much content. People are leaping to conclusions so quickly. And people are swirling up and setting their own narrative so quickly that for someone to actually stand back and try to pause and make sense of it is very difficult because so many people are telling you what to think and showing you what seems like evidence. And it's hard for people to distinguish, I think.
If you think about the spate of beheading videos, mostly by ISIS in the middle part of the 2010s, though we could go as far back as Daniel Pearl in 2002, those were on the internet. But you had to look for them. Platforms tried to take them down. And I wonder if you could talk about the distance you see between that moment and now.
Yeah, if we go back to around 2015, which was when the sort of ISIS beheading videos, they were so omnipresent. And I think it's important to note because it was a strategy by ISIS.
Yes.
They wanted to do these beheadings. They wanted to make news with them. They wanted this to be their calling card, one, to sort of scare the West and the infidels, but also for recruiting. And it was effective at recruiting. And so at that time, that was kind of a remarkable thing because, as you say, like, yes, videos had existed, but you really had to go looking. You had to find them. They weren't as omnipresent, whereas ISIS was like, we want this in front of as many people as possible. So there was a plan for distribution of the beheading videos, and they shot it cinematically to do this. And so that, I think, is a really important moment. And the platforms were not really prepared. They hadn't really seen someone prepare to deliver this and spread it. And then, of course, because it is so shocking and so extreme, it's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle because people are going to engage with him. And so at that moment, that's where a lot of the social media platforms realize, like, okay, we have to think about how we're going to handle this stuff. We have to think about how it flows across platforms. And they basically have been, trying to chase that for the last 10 years. And I feel like there's an element where we've now, at this point, 10 years later, have just come to accept that there's a certain amount of that stuff that's going to be out there. And maybe part of it is because the people producing it and people who are trying to generate engagement realize how good that stuff and well it performs.
Oh, God.
So there's just more of it now, it's a little more present, and the platforms have thrown in the towel in some ways.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that, because there was a time in which the platforms invested a lot, money and people and algorithms, in content moderation. Do you think this Charlie Kirk video would have been as omnipresent in that moment?
I think with this video, one of the tensions that is inherent in it is, it is newsworthy in a sense. It
Yeah.
is not a planned execution. In a way, it was, but in terms of like the filming of it and the broadcasting of it differs from the ISIS videos in that sense. It's a newsworthy event that happened, and so there is, I think, a genuine point that we shouldn't ask the platforms necessarily to instantly suppress everything. One, I don't think they can because they're so big, they don't even know what's on their platforms in a genuine sense. But also, to go back to the Kennedy example, we don't necessarily want an information environment where someone can just turn a switch and then everything, of a certain type is gone. And so there's a tension with this, where in a way, like should it be instantly banned? Probably not. Is that possible? No, in our current environment. But it's also like thinking about what the policies are of these companies. So if we take Meta, the biggest of them all, what they try to do is they try to apply sort of sensitive content labels to warn people, to prevent them from accidentally seeing someone being shot in the neck. They try to prevent the material from being shown to people under 18. And if the family of the victim reaches out, they will then make an effort to fully remove it. And so that's why I say in some ways they've kind of thrown in the towel, because they've decided like there's a certain amount of this stuff that has to spread and has to be there. Where the rollback of moderation really is important is the amount of times it shows up in different people's feeds. I think there was a time maybe 4 or 5 years ago or what have you, especially in the wake of the mass killings in Christchurch in 2019, where they would have really made a big effort to suppress distribution.
Which were live streamed on Facebook.
They were live streamed on Facebook. And not only was it live streamed, and a few thousand people, I believe, watched it, but after that, the video itself, the capture of the live stream, was uploaded continuously, almost in what appeared to be, and no one knows for sure what happened, but appeared to be like an orchestrated attempt to get this in front of as many people as possible, almost mimicking the sort of ISIS approach. And so like that sort of reminds us that there are often times where, these acts are done to get the attention and to get it to spread. And the platforms have a responsibility to responsibly figure out how to handle this and not enable it to be a propaganda, conversion moment, but also to not step into the realm of being, complete and total censors. So in fairness to them, like that's a tough balance to walk, but also they have made choices to roll back some of these systems that they had in place. And that is a choice they made.
But then you also have the owner of one of the platforms tweeting the left is the party of murder.
Yeah, I mean, look, X is, at this point, with Elon's takeover of Twitter and turning it into X, it is just operating in a different way, I think, than when you look at what Meta is doing, you look at what TikTok is doing, for example. And there was a recent research done by the New York Times of really analyzing and looking at how, for example, Grok, the AI implemented into X, had sort of changed its answers and become much more right-leaning. Yeah. When the owner of it, and it's a completely private company, so there's no public reporting required of them, when he has become an extremely political figure and has pretty extreme views at this point, nobody knows what he is doing to tweak the algorithms. And it's a true black box, even more than the black boxes at Meta and TikTok.
After the break, violence as the ultimate trending topic. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks Fifth Avenue makes it easy to get creative with your personal style and find the best arrivals for fall. Whether you're trying out the latest fashion trends or curating a closet that stands the test of time, Saks has you covered. Saks makes shopping feel personal. Their trusted in-store stylists are there to guide and inspire you, helping you find pieces that fit every aspect of your lifestyle. Prefer online shopping? Saks.com offers a curated selection tailored to your taste. From new arrivals by your favorite designers like Prada jackets and Gucci loafers to stylish pieces for your everyday needs. Whether it's date night, a vacation, a special occasion, or just lounging in style, Saks helps you find the perfect look for every occasion. If you want shopping to be fun and easy, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to elevate your personal style every day.
Recently, we asked some people about sharing their New York Times accounts.
My name is Dana. I am a subscriber to the New York Times, but my husband isn't. And it would be really nice to be able to share a recipe or an article or compete with him in Wordle or Connections. Thank you.
Dana, we heard you. Introducing the New York Times Family Subscription. One subscription, up to 4 separate logins for anyone in your life. Find out more at nytimes.com/family.
This episode is brought to you by KPMG. Making an impact is how KPMG helps make the difference. KPMG applies advanced tools and strategic thinking to convert data into actionable knowledge and deliver value by improving performance through transformation, modernizing processes with technology, harnessing the power of data, navigating complex M&A transactions, and enhancing trust among stakeholders. Go to kpmg.us/advisory to learn more. KPMG. Make the difference.
Well, what are the other platforms doing with this now? Like, do we have any insight into how their content moderation operations were acting around this Charlie Kirk video?
They haven't really said much. So, YouTube has said publicly that they have, restricted it. They put some sensitive content warnings. They've also tried to restrict it from being shown to, any accounts belonging to people under 18 years old. Meta has not really said anything specific, but they have pointed to their sort of violent and graphic imagery policies, which again outline the idea of, there is some stuff that they will remove, but there's a lot of stuff that they sort of prefer to just, label and restrict its distribution. And so, they like, for example, it's against the rules on Meta's platforms to post any kind of imagery showing dismemberment or burning or charred people or throat slitting, live streams of capital punishments. I mean, it's just crazy to even read these policies because that they've been written because stuff like this
something
has
happened.
Actually gone on their platforms. Exactly. And so they sit and they write these things out. And so the most violent kind of stuff they are trying to do that with. But they also, a lot of times are just trying to apply sensitive content labels and not have it being widely distributed.
Which goes back to this thing you're talking about where sensitive, graphic, horrible content can often act with a purpose or as an accelerant. I'm thinking about the video of Irina Zarutska, a Ukrainian refugee who was stabbed to death in Charlotte, North Carolina. And her death and the video of that has also become subsumed into the right-wing social media distribution system. And I don't know how to pull apart these realities because it does seem like, depending on what platform you're on, you could be in a totally different reality from someone else.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like the video of the Ukrainian refugee and of Charlie Kirk have been kind of like the bookends almost of the last, couple of weeks, particularly on X. I mean,
yeah,
again, to go back to Elon Musk, I mean, he has been tweeting stuff about that video. He has been tweeting a lot of other sort of graphic stuff about, grooming gangs and so there has been a narrative that has been, I think, very consciously being put out there related to crime and related to immigration and all of these kinds of things. And, the reality is that it does feel like there are times where a particularly powerful piece of imagery, like a video, like that woman, unfortunately being, stabbed on that public transit, it's a very powerful and shocking video. And because of that, people look at that to a certain extent and they see, oh, this is good raw material for my narrative and my messaging, and I'm going to use this and I'm going to push this. And, you don't necessarily need to show the whole video. Most of the stuff that I've seen of the video of her was not the full video, but just the screenshots or like a short one of her just sitting down in front of the guy. And the ominous element of that is kind of enough to convey your point. And it's just like, I think it's maybe a little facile, but the reality is just everything is content and everything is narrative these days. Like so much gets used as ammunition, particularly with how fractious and polarized the U.S. is. People are just looking for this kind of ammunition all the time. And the stuff that works is the stuff that gets people outraged. And so that is often, very violent, extreme things that have happened. That's what gets people exercised. And that what makes your point that you're trying to make seem even more powerful.
And this is where I wonder where this crosses to people who honestly might not have known who Charlie Kirk was, who do not spend their days on X. And I don't know the answer to that because it sounds like we are describing something that is both simultaneously incredibly powerful and incredibly siloed. And because traditional media companies are in, frankly, pretty dire straits, and a lot of kind of the standard kinds of gatekeeping have collapsed for better or worse, I don't know how people try to find a shared reality or whether they can.
It does feel like there's a certain collapse of the middle going on, and you'll often hear people,
but like,
talk about
are we making too much of that? I don't know.
Well, this is the thing is you can sort of like come into this and say like, do I have that perspective because I'm actually trapped in my own loop, right? And that's actually, it's a healthy thing in some ways to step back, because that's actually what I think is missing for so many people, is to remember that like you don't have to make a decision based on that one video and that one post you saw being shared of it. You don't have to decide right away. You don't have to be dragged into that fight in that moment. You could actually wait and guard your attention and wait to see what actually happens. And so, yes, I think, if we look at what data is out there, most people don't seem to be in the sort of filter bubbles or rabbit holes. Like, there absolutely are people who are living in very, very secluded information silos and absorbing, and in some cases putting out, extreme content. The data seems to suggest most people are not that far gone. And that's, so if you want any kind of good news, maybe that's the good news, is that the data seems to suggest, that's not the case. But the reality is, over time, it's exposure that sort of has an effect. And so, the more and more people are battling, the more and more these sort of narrative wars are going on, the more that some people might be getting cleaved one way or another. And I think, people having the ability to sort of pause and not get trapped into the scrolling, and feel like you have to make up your mind and feel like you're getting a rise out of yourself of consuming the outrage-oriented content. That's, I think, one of the first ways of kind of, if you want to think about it, taking back the middle or taking back your own cognition, is a little bit of patience, a little bit of, hesitancy, and pulling back is kind of like the first good step, because people are trying to get you excited and exercised, and you have to find a way to guard against that.
The media has been grappling with how to cover violent events for a long time, right? Like, even when we think about school shootings, do we name the person? Do we not name the person? Does that glorify them? And it does make me wonder how, particularly when you have this collapse of distance where you can have a violent event in the palm of your hand and spread it with 2 taps, does it make violence seem less real, more gamified when we do that? Or are we still shocked when you suddenly realize that no matter what you think, that's a human being?
Yeah, look, I mean, the reality is that vicarious trauma is real. So if you are consuming and exposed to this kind of content with any kind of frequency, it will affect you as a person. So that's one thing I think people should understand. And so there's like, in a way, a crazy social experiment happening where more people are seeing more graphic, violent content than ever before. And we don't really know what the effects of that will be. We know what vicarious trauma looks like. It can have a huge toll on someone's life. And this is, usually people who are like, journalists who are looking at a lot of graphic footage for verifying or what have you, people, working in human rights who have to look at it, these kinds of things. It can have a real effect on how they live and their personal relationships. And really, it's a deteriorating effect on those things. And so I do worry, like, what is the overall effect that might happen as people are seeing more of this stuff, of the more graphic imagery is out there. And the thing to also note about that is it's not even necessarily newsworthy big events like this. There are people who are absolutely posting extremely graphic, violent content for engagement on these platforms to make money in some way. And the way that to reinforce this is that earlier this year, after Meta rolled back a bunch of its automated systems for moderation, there was basically this explosion of extremely crazy graphic content that a bunch of people on Instagram Reels experienced for a certain period.
We talked about this. You came on the show.
This is it. I mean, and this was like, people couldn't believe what they were seeing. There were like elephants crushing people. There were people being beheaded. And the crazy thing was, it's not like somebody just immediately uploaded this video trying to reach people. This stuff is swimming around on Instagram and Reels because people are posting it to get engagement. And so it's there. And some people are getting this in their feed. Most people aren't supposed to, but some people are. So, yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is, like, we don't know what the effect is going to be for society to have this kind of stuff accessible and out there. And that's, a really worrying scenario.
Craig Silverman, I so appreciate your expertise and you sharing it with us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Craig Silverman is a journalist and the co-founder of Indicator, a publication that reports on digital deception and digital platforms. All right, that is it for our show today. What Next TBD is produced by Evan Campbell and Patrick Fort. Paige Osborne is senior supervising producer for What Next and What Next TBD, and Mia Lobel is the executive producer of podcasts here at Slate. TBD is also part of the larger What Next family, and if you are looking for more Slate shows to listen to, I highly recommend that you check out Thursday's episode of What Next. It's about how the Supreme Court effectively legalized racial profiling to aid the Trump administration's deportation agenda. All right, we'll be back on Sunday with another episode. I'm Lizzie O'Leary. Thanks for listening. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks Fifth Avenue makes it easy to get creative with your personal style and find the best arrivals for fall. Whether you're trying out the latest fashion trends or curating a closet that stands the test of time, Saks has you covered. Saks makes shopping feel personal. Their trusted in-store stylists are there to guide and inspire you, helping you find pieces that fit every aspect of your lifestyle. Prefer online shopping? Saks.com offers a curated selection tailored to your taste. From new arrivals by your favorite designers like Prada jackets and Gucci loafers to stylish pieces for your everyday needs. Whether it's date night, a vacation, a special occasion, or just lounging in style, Saks helps you find the perfect look for every occasion. If you want shopping to be fun and easy, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to elevate your personal style every day.
You're listening to Leaf Filter Radio, and the guru of gutter protection himself, Chris Coonahan, is here to take your most pressing leaf-related questions.
Hey, everybody, Chris here. I understand we have Ron on the line. Ron, where are you calling from?
Uh-oh. Ron, are you calling from a ladder?
Well, I was. I wanted to ask Chris what I need to do to get my gutters ready to have Leaf Filter installed.
Oh, Ron, you don't have to do anything. A Leaf Filter Trusted Pro will come out and clean out your gutters, realign and seal your gutters, and install Leaf Filter, America's #1 gutter protection system.
So I didn't need to get on this ladder?
Ron, Leaf Filter Trusted Pros are in your neighborhood and ready to help. Just visit leaffilter.com/day to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off.
Thank goodness. What was that site?
That's leaffilter.com/day for your free gutter inspection today. See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.